Welcome to Laguna Woods Stories, where we meet interesting people in our own community of Laguna Woods. My name is Susan Wheeler, and I'm filling in this month for Tom Nash. And we have with us today Rebecca Gilad, who is the president of Community Bridge Builders. Rebecca, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, and I'm so anxious to hear your story. So let's just start with a bit of background. Tell me, you've got a bit of an accent, but tell me, where did you grow up?
I was born and I grew up in Mexico City.
Oh, my.
Yes.
Goodness. And you were born there. Well, I'm sure there's a long story of what brought you from Mexico City to Laguna Woods. Maybe you could tell us a bit about your early years of living in Mexico City. Sure. You went to school there.
Correct. I'm the granddaughter and daughter of immigrants from Eastern Europe to Mexico, as they were trying to get to the United States but couldn't.
Right.
So they went through Cuba into Mexico. And I'm first generation born in Mexico City.
Oh, really?
I went there to school, elementary, middle school, high school, university, and I became a journalist there. And it was in 1973 that by chance, outside of a dressing room in Houston, Texas, I met one of the main journalists of Mexican television. Huh. He was trying on something, I was trying on something, and we started to talk in the common mirror.
Oh, how interesting.
And he told me, we need someone to go to cover the war in Israel. Would you like to do that? And I said, I'm packed. When can I go?
Oh, my gosh. So you were a television journalist.
Yes.
But now let's back up a little bit. Now, your education in Mexico City, did you have any siblings, by the way?
3 sisters.
3 sisters.
We're 4 sisters.
All right.
Yeah, so my father was always the king of the house.
Okay.
And I went there do schooling. My BA was in history, and then my master's in journalism.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, and the first job as a journalist was for the Johnson & Johnson Foundation, who had a very good newsletter, so that's where I started. Then I became a journalist for the Mexican television in Israel, where I met Ami, my husband.
Okay, now slow down a minute here. So you ended up in Israel.
Yes.
Now your family is from Israel, right?
No. One part of the family came from what was then Poland.
Oh, I see.
And the other part of the family, what was then Russia. Nowadays, both of those towns, one being Kiev and the other one, another one, are Ukraine.
I see.
But both sides came from those parts.
Okay, so you have a Jewish heritage.
Correct.
All right, all right. So, and that's what brought you to Mexico City, which led you to a degree in journalism.
Right.
Which led you to opening the doors to the whole world as a reporter.
Yes, but because I spoke Hebrew, then they thought in Mexico, okay, that's an easy way to have her be in Israel, and it was at the end of the 73 war.
Oh, of course, of course. Now, growing up in Mexico City, I keep getting back to that. I just think
that's fine.
It's so interesting, this family, you know, with this strong father and the 3 sisters, and you probably all spoke many languages.
Yeah.
At home. What was the main language at home?
Spanish.
It was Spanish.
Yes.
Not Hebrew or anything.
Or English.
Or English.
In Mexico, in my times, in school, we started kindergarten by learning, obviously at home we spoke Spanish, and we learned Yiddish. It was a Jewish day school.
I see.
Then in elementary school, they added to the Spanish and the Yiddish, they added Hebrew. As you went further into elementary and high school, they added English.
I see.
And if you knew that you at the university you would go into the humanities,
yes,
you had to learn French also.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and if you were going to any science, then you went to chemistry, physics, etc. So it was a multi-language school.
All right, so you are a multilingual person. So Spanish and your Jewish background led you to a career where you first went to Israel.
Correct.
And that was in 1973. And how many years were you there then?
4.
Oh my gosh, so this was not just a one
No.
coverage thing. You were there.
Yeah, we got married there. We had our son there. And then Ami decided that he used to be an airplane designer there, and he decided he wanted to be an oceanographer. So we moved to the United States so that he could study oceanography, and I started a new career.
Oh my gosh, so this is chapter 2.
Yes.
So you moved to the U.S., so which city did you start in?
We started in Rockville, Maryland. We moved to another city very close by, Bethesda, and then Potomac, Maryland.
Of course.
And we stayed there for the next 28 years.
And he studied oceanography?
Yes.
Became an oceanographer in the East
Right.
Coast. And you, in the meantime, what were
I
you
had
doing?
another baby, and then I went back to school where I did a master's in health services administration and a PhD in gerontology.
How interesting. Now, gerontology, where does that come from?
My grandfather lived with us all my youth, and he was a big influence in my life.
I see.
And I knew that's what I wanted to do.
All right.
I was very attracted by the idea of looking into, as the population is growing and growing old.
Absolutely.
That's where I wanted to be. So,
Yes, you had a lot of foresight. And yeah,
however, the day that I finished defending my dissertation for the PhD,
Right.
the same day I received a telephone call that changed my life.
Oh, what happened?
Because during my studies, I had been working with the National Hispanic Council on Aging, the National Council on Aging. I did an internship at the Committee on Aging of the Senate, U.S. Senate.
Oh, my.
But then, after just coming out of defending my dissertation, the telephone call came from the American Red Cross, where I had been a long-time volunteer. They had just received the federal money to do HIV/AIDS education, because it was at the time that HIV was starting the epidemic, and nobody knew anything about it. And they had to educate people about what it was.
Right.
So they called me, would you like to be the director of the Hispanic HIV/AIDS National Program?
Wow.
And I said, I sure would like to, if you tell me what's HIV, because nobody knew at that time.
That's true.
It was the first federal program.
So you were just thrown right in there.
Yes.
But you had these amazing language skills, communication skills. You were the perfect person for the job, it sounds like.
I don't know if the perfect person, but it was 12 years that I really loved what I was doing.
So that must have taken you around the world a bit for some traveling.
Mostly from the United States going south all the way, all of Latin America, because it was the Hispanic HIV. And at the beginning, it was supposed to be the Hispanic HIV/AIDS program just for the United States. There was a manager for the African American HIV/AIDS. There was another one for LGBTQ populations.
Right.
Mine was only the Hispanic. So it was all tailored for Hispanic cultures within the United States. But then the government said, you know what? We need to bring this throughout Latin America. And then we trained people from the border all the way down to Chile, Argentina, all of Central America. And then, because it became so popular, what we were doing, the United Nations called me to go to England, to London, to train all the African American countries.
So that was your life for 12 years?
Yes, it was
and
something.
you were the person to talk with. That must have been quite an amazing time.
It was.
Thinking back on the research people not knowing what was happening.
And to train, the training was fantastic. And at the same time that I was doing that, I got a grant, a fellowship from the Kellogg Foundation to do whatever a program that I wanted to do, combining what I was doing with something else. So I chose for 3 years, and they would pay for everything.
Right.
So I chose to do a study on women's leadership in Central America. And it was at the time of the Civil War in El Salvador. So I was going and coming and going and coming back. At the same time that I was training people there on HIV/AIDS, I was interviewing women in leadership positions. So I got to know people that were part of the army and the government and leaders that were in the guerrilla movement.
Well, that's got to have been a challenge, dealing with both sides.
It was fantastic.
How did you manage that?
Well, I put the war aside, and the government that knew that the Red Cross was doing the HIV/AIDS called me and asked if I could please train about the HIV/AIDS, both the people of the army and the people of the guerrilla, because they were seeing a great increase in numbers of AIDS. So I said, okay, but with some conditions, because they wanted it to be the same week for both together, both sides. Ooh. So I said, no uniforms of any kind and no weapons allowed in the room.
So they just had to be neutral. They could not identify each other as...
Exactly.
Oh, that was genius.
But the very first day, the tables were set up and the people came in. They somehow knew, I don't know, they said, one sits this way, the others went the other way. And as the week kept advancing, they kept getting closer and closer. It was fantastic. By the last day, I told them, okay, because we were going to have a big graduation, I told them, you have to do something that is connected to art and that is about HIV/AIDS. So some people, and the groups have to be mixed from both sides. So some people did little theater, something, different things. If one group did a dance where they were
interesting.
And one group did a song. With they brought their guitars. They made up the song. And as it turns out, the song was about, if you do this, bad. If you do this, good. And it was a very happy song. And by some kind of a chance, there was a music producer there during the graduation. And he said, you know what? I have got to bring you back to do this song. And they did, and it was playing in the radio all the time.
Oh my gosh, what a story.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
That whole thing is a real testament to your unique skills that you have as an organizer and communicator and all of that.
It was, the opportunity was there, really? And I grabbed it.
So, of course, I have to ask, what happened next?
Well, I spent years there doing that, and then I went back to when the war finished.
Right.
I was brought back to be with the United Nations to see the vote happening.
Of course.
And that was very exciting also, because I was seeing old friends that were used to be enemies, and now they were voting together. It was fantastic.
That really is.
So I came back, and then the children decided to move to California.
The children did?
Yes. First my son, and then my daughter with her husband and the baby.
Oh, my.
And the moment she said, we're taking the baby, who's now 22, I told Amy, start packing, my dear, we're going. And we moved to California.
So in Southern California?
Yes.
Yes? So was that when you moved to Laguna Woods?
No. We first lived in Anaheim Hills.
Oh, okay.
And I was dancing a lot.
You're a dancer. Now, have you been a dancer most of your life?
Yeah.
Really?
Since I was 3.
Oh my goodness, in Mexico, of
Yes.
course. Well, what a happy, joyous place to dance.
Yes.
Oh, and the music there is wonderful.
Wonderful.
So you had another career as a dancer
That
not
was
a career.
my dream.
You're-
That was my dream as a child.
All right.
But it has always been my passion.
Yes, and you have stuck with it and explored all sorts of venues of dancing in Orange County, too, it sounds
Yes.
like. How wonderful.
And then we decided
In
to
Laguna
move to
Woods?
Laguna Woods in 2016.
That's when you moved here.
Yeah, a year later or 2 years later, Recreation gave me the opportunity to teach here my Latin
Okay.
line dance and then Israeli dances. I loved it. And then COVID happened.
Oh, yes, that I do remember that. Oh, and everything shut down
Yes,
for those
but
couple of years.
we are preparing an intercultural party festival on November 18th
Oh.
with many different clubs, and it's going to be about dance, music, and food.
Oh, how
So
fabulous.
I'm going back to dancing.
Of course you should. Well, now, let's hear a little more. So you moved to Laguna Woods. You started exploring things. COVID happened. And then you regrouped with a vengeance, and you started jumping in to do the dancing things.
And community
and
bridge
community bridge builders. Well, tell us a lot about community bridge builders. What is that exactly?
It's a group that was created because of bad things happening. It was two things prompted us to create this group. One was first the woman walking in our midst wearing a
Oh,
swastika.
I remember that.
And the second was the killing at the church.
Yeah, such
So a
dreadful.
group got together and we said, what are we going to do about this? It's mostly about, we are so fortunate to live in Laguna Woods. It's a paradise. And there shouldn't be these things happening. And what's happening is that if you look at the clubs, we're so separate from each other
It's
and
true.
we hardly know each other. So how about if we come together as an inclusive part of the village and try to get to know each other? That's the whole idea. I would love to hear your story like I'm telling you my story. And once you start listening, really listening to stories, all those things, even if you give a chance, even political issues, you don't have to agree with me,
Right.
but get to know me, because once you know me, it's more difficult to hate me.
Oh my gosh, this is very powerful. This is something we should be doing all over the world. Yeah. So you are the one that was behind this whole group of bridge builders.
There were, no,
Many
it
of
was
them.
a group that was...
Well, I did have, yes, I have other friends that
Yes,
were
and now
involved
we
in
are
it too.
330
Oh my gosh,
members.
really, to think how it has grown over the years.
Yes.
And you've done some amazing...
1 year.
Oh, in 1 year that happened? Well, we were all shocked by the incidents that took place.
Yes,
We were.
yes.
But what to do about it? I mean, most people would say, well, what do you do? But here you are. You all got together
Yes.
and figured out
Yes.
a way to begin to tackle this.
Exactly.
So people are coming together now in various ways through
Yes.
different events, and you've had you've had a number of events. I remember something with singing recently.
Yes,
Well,
one song.
One song. Now, what was that?
We got together 3 days, 3 consecutive days to learn the song.
Of other countries?
No, it
Oh.
was a song. I was searching what song should we use, and Mr. Ortiz from Recreation said, you have to have permission to use a song that is not ours,
Of
that you're
course.
going to put in YouTube or wherever. So I found a song that I loved, and he said, okay, find who wrote it and ask for permission.
Oh.
And I thought that the author was dead. And I did a little bit more research and I found a name with an email. So I sent an email. 5 minutes later, I have a response. Yes, you have permission and I want to come to be part of the
Oh,
choir.
how wonderful.
And he came with the wife and the daughter, and now he's writing another song just for us for next year.
Oh, what a story.
Yes, And the name of the song, the whole song is really the message of who we are and what we are.
Right.
Yes, it's called One Song.
One song for everyone.
For the whole world to sing together.
Oh.
Yes, that was the main message.
Yes.
Now in November, we're doing the same, but with dancing.
Oh.
So we have the Korean club, the Persians, the Hawaiian club,
Right.
the Chinese club, our club, Israeli dances, Latin dances, many coming together to dance together. So through the arts.
Through the arts, then, does it? American ballroom dance?
Not ballroom, but we're starting and we're finishing the program. All of the dancers doing 2 American dances.
Oh, what fun.
Yes.
So you find this joyous way of getting people together.
Yes.
Well, they talk, they communicate, they have fun, they share their stories, their differences, and it's wonderful. Oh my gosh, this is just a great story to hear about. Well, you've had so much in your life. Looking back, you've talked about a number of things. And the proudest moments, well, you've covered several of them. If you had to pick 1 or 2, what would have been the proudest, most, indelible moments that you've been able to, or not?
When I was living with a group from the guerrilla movement in El Salvador, I was actually living with them. They had their hut, and I would sleep outside in a sleeping bag.
Wow.
And they received me as if I was part of the family, except that I was the only one that was served meat. I felt so bad.
Oh.
They felt so good, I felt so bad. They put their money into buying meat for me to make me an honored guest. They didn't have the money to do that, and yet they would do that for me.
Yes, they were.
And I remember one night, I was in my sleeping bag, and I was listening birds in the middle of the night, and I was thinking, this is so funny. So different kinds of birds singing at night. So the next morning I asked, what are these birds that sing at night? And they told me, they're not birds. It's different whistles that we use here to alert others that the army, their enemy, is coming close to us.
Oh, my.
Those are things, that's one thing, an example of how lucky we are here. How different,
Of course.
our lives are.
Absolutely.
The way they live, the way they sleep, the way they eat.
With fear,
and
yes.
the way we eat, some of us.
Yes.
The way some of us live.
Right.
We take so many things for granted.
Absolutely. And need to take time to be grateful and understand, well, with stories like yours, of how much we have to be grateful for.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, anyway, you've had such an interesting life, and Bridge Builders is quite a dynamic group that continues to grow. And any other plans that you have in the future? You are just a dynamite of,
Well,
of all
I'm
the
begging
ideas.
Recreation to please give me a room so I can teach my Latin line dance again.
Oh, okay.
I'm waiting. Other plans. I want for members of the community bridge builders to have opportunities to go out from our paradise and actually see how others live. We did one field trip to a museum, but that's a museum. I would love to go to Manzanar with the group.
Oh, yes.
To see what happened in the detention camp that is not far away from us.
Yeah,
There is a place in Orange County that I haven't been able to find, but I know it's there, with a tree that is left from a place where people used to hang African American
Oh,
people.
my gosh. Really? I've not heard of that.
Yeah.
And it's in Orange
In
County
Orange
somewhere?
County.
I have never heard of that.
There is so much to learn,
Yes.
and if we learn together and if we learn from each other, when you just take the time to ask questions like you're doing,
Yes,
and you suddenly see how a person lives in India and how a person lives in Korea. It's so interesting, and then you feel that you don't have in common the language or the food, but the humanity is what
Absolutely.
makes us be who we are.
Absolutely. And it is such a mixed community. I don't know if, has anyone looked at the census figures of how many, the percentage of people in our population here? Is that part of your thing too, that are non-English speaking people that speak Spanish or Hindi or whatever? Do we have those figures?
Yes.
Do we?
They are in the office. We know
Really?
2,500 Koreans.
Really?
1,000, I can't remember if 1,500 or 1,800 from China, Taiwan.
Of course.
Latinos, there are very few. But tonight, there is a party. There is a new club of the Hispanic Heritage Club. And tonight, they're having a dance, a party.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah. So that's another thing we're trying to do through Community Bridge Builders,
Right.
to ask the people to participate in other clubs where they
Right.
never, or they go very seldom or never, to start by doing that.
Yes.
And once they're there, to introduce themselves and to ask questions and to listen.
That's right.
Oh, and I forgot such an important project. We are doing a video of 1 hour about ageism, the bias against older people.
Oh, we need that these days, don't we? Boy,
yes.
Oh, boy.
So it's done by residents, seniors, for seniors around the nation.
Now, how we're running short on time here, but so seniors around the nation. Oh, it's a national program.
That's what we're hoping.
All right.
Right now, it's a Laguna Woods project.
Here you are again, little dynamo that you are.
And
oh my gosh.
it's 4 stories, not real, but stories that show different views of ageism. It's acted by our actors in Laguna Woods. It's directed by the directors,
That is
written by
so
the
talented.
writers.
Oh, that is very
We already
exciting.
did the filming of the first story that deals with 4 friends that get together to play poker on a regular basis, and this is their last game. And in the story, you learn why.
Okay.
There is another story about physical abuse of an older person.
Oh, this sounds very powerful. What's in store for us? We're all going to be looking forward to hearing more about these things.
Thank you.
Really, very much. Well, this time has gone so quickly, and I think we're going to have to sign off here. Goodness, Gila, it's just been a pleasure talking with you today. You are so inspiring, and hope you'll be back and keep us posted with new things that are coming. And thank you so much for being here. And Laguna Woods residents, we'll see you next time with another interesting, exciting person. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you so much.